Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again, and welcome to The Roads with Bo. Today is June 13th, 2024, and today we are going down the roads to Project 2025. And we're going to kind of go over some of what's in it. You're going to hear more and more about this as the election nears. And it does appear that the Democratic Party is going to start drawing a little bit more attention to this. Okay, so you've probably heard about it and wondered if it's some kind of bizarre, off-the-wall internet theory. Because the name, Project 2025, it's catchy and it sounds a lot like all of the other giant, sensational nothing burgers that appear on the internet from time to time. You know, something that starts with project or plan or agenda and then a year. Okay, so this is not some made-up conspiracy theory. This is a real thing put out by a think tank. Its real name, I think, is Mandate for Leadership. Representative Crockett, who recently gained a lot of attention nationally for her back and forth with Marjorie Taylor Greene, she said, in the United States of America, dictatorships are never funny. And Project 2025 is giving the playbook for authoritarianism as well as the next dictator to come in. This thing is more than 900 pages long, and it is a playbook to remake American society and government. Section 1 is titled Taking the Reins of Government. And really, that's a good summary of the whole thing. It calls for a massive expansion of executive power directly under the control of the president, who would presumably be Trump. The BBC description of the project is, quote, Project 2025 proposes the entire federal bureaucracy, including independent agencies such as the Department of Justice, be placed under direct presidential control. If that were to occur, the person in power would be able to dictate policy pretty directly. It proposes replacing career federal employees with political appointees. Representative Presley of Massachusetts called it a 1,000-page bucket list of extremist policies. Okay, so what does it do? I have read this. The stuff we're going to go over, this is not in order. These are from my notes. And we're just going to go through some of what's in it. It attacks the LGBTQ plus community, and it calls to, quote, maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family. That might interfere with things like adoption. It would cut funding for renewables and increase dirty energy usage and production. It would use the FDA to go after reproductive rights. It would, of course, provide more tax breaks to corporations. I mean, that goes without saying. It's a right-wing thing. It paints the U.S. State Department as some kind of rogue leftist organization. The actual leftists watching this channel right now have either burst out into laughter or tears. I don't know which. The plan calls to repeal parts of the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. This is something that I want to say a little more than 40 million Americans use to get their health insurance. There's a section that seems to advocate banning grown-up movies and images. If that is its plan. You can kiss your fans account goodbye. It calls to get rid of the Department of Education. Period. Like, it's not like the Department of Education's blank program. No, all of it. It is important to remember what department makes sure that educational facilities are living up to their obligations when it comes to civil rights. It calls for a rethinking, quote, of U.S. support for the Kurds. That means further abandoning and betraying them. When it comes to the EPA, it says, quote, regulatory efforts should focus on addressing tangible environmental problems. Hey, that sounds all right. The rest of it says, with practical, cost-beneficial, affordable solutions. So, in other words, they're not going to do anything that a large corporation doesn't want them to do. It seems to suggest prioritizing China rather than Russia, the country that's actively threatening U.S. allies. And to the contrary, it seems as though it would want the president to encourage NATO, our NATO allies, to view the United States as nothing more than its nuclear deterrent. And everything else, well, you have to handle that on your own. It suggests stronger action against Venezuela, because, that's a major priority. As far as the Department of Labor, it says, and this is in the opening part, I think it's a mission statement or the introduction to this section. I'm not joking here. It says, the Judeo-Christian tradition stretching back to Genesis has always recognized fruitful work as integral to human dignity as service to God, neighbor, and family. So that gives you a good idea of where they're coming from. It also says to, quote, rescind regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, and sex characteristics. And of course, because no, right-wing public policy idea would be complete without this, it goes after like PBS and NPR. There is much more to this, but all of this would occur after the consolidation of executive power, and it would presumably occur under a man who tried very hard to retain that power, even after the American people told him that, well, they just weren't that into him, and that he was not who they wanted to continue to hold office. That person, under this plan, would be given even more executive power to dictate his whims to the country. Now, the Democratic Party has been pretty quiet about this until now. You're going to start seeing them talk about it more and more. And I know that bothered some people. In fact, I've got a whole bunch of messages to that effect. I actually think that was the smart move. It didn't risk normalizing it ahead of time. There's enough in this thing. Please understand, this is just a brief summary showing the wide range of topics that are addressed in this. There is enough in this proposal for the Democratic Party to put out a talking point every other day using nothing but what's written every other day until the election. And it'd be something that the overwhelming majority of people in the United States would not look kindly upon. It's worth noting that a whole lot of the ideas in this have already found their way into Trump's speeches. Now, to me, of greatest concern is the ability to replace career officials with political appointees. When you say it that way, it doesn't sound as bad as it could be. It's replacing people who know how to do the job with Trump loyalists. That's what it would amount to under a Trump administration. That is the key piece that lets all of the other ones happen. And that is, without a doubt, to me, the one of greatest concern. Now, the good news is that most of this would be challenged in court, like, immediately. Like, right out the gate, it would be going to court. The bad news is we have no idea how that would play out. I will put a link down below to the whole thing. Again, it is 900 and something pages. I would use the Find feature and type in topics that you're interested in, things you care about, and see what it has to say about them. And don't just use the normal terms. Use the conservative Republican buzzwords for it. You know, when you are looking for something dealing with civil rights, type in the word woke, or DEI, or CRT, or something like that. I would imagine that if most people did that about the things that they care about, there would be pretty strong opposition. Now, the flip side to that is, you know, people may look it up and say, hey, you know, this is what we need. Better the whims of one man than the whims of, 400. I don't believe that. But this is here. It's not made up. It isn't a joke. It's from a very influential organization. And you already see some of the talking points entering Trump's rhetoric. So I would take a look at it with the goal of finding out what it says about the things you care about. Because it's broken down by section, but the things you care about may not always be where you think. The section about HUD has a little bit about climate change. It isn't always where you might imagine it. But when you go through it, I would suggest that the overwhelming majority of people watching this channel would not be happy with what they find. So when you hear about this, understand it's not made up. It's not a secret. You can go and read this yourself, and you get a little bit more context to what's being said. And, well, there you go. A little more context, a little more information, and having the right information will make all the difference. Y'all have a good day.